off the show with the market action of the day. It was a day of volatile trade on the last day, to where markets saw a sharp decline in the last hour to end below the key levels that we had seen yesterday. So Nifty and Sensex ended with cuts of about 0.5%, with Nifty ending below 10,200. Sensex ended below the 33,900 mark. Now, the decline on benchmarks was largely led by the large financials, with Bank Nifty shedding almost 150 points by the end of the day. Mid-caps outperformed today, and that index ended with gains of almost 0.7%. Anuj Singhal joining in now with the lowdown of today's trading action. Anuj, it was largely a day of consolidation after the big move that we saw yesterday. A little bit of sobering after the kind of bullishness that we expected.
Volatile day for the market today, but mid-caps outperformed. The problem for the market is large private financials, ex-ICICI, are dragging the market along with Reliance. In fact, Reliance was the largest drag on the market along with HDFC and ITC. Oil marketing companies were also lower, HPCL, BPCL and IOC, after the numbers from BPCL. IndusInd is a big problem for the market, again down 4%. Sun Pharma and Eicher Motors were also down. On the gaining side, you had names like HUL, Infosys and Z Entertainment. In the F&O space, there were some big gainers like DHFL, Jet Airways and Just Dial, while PSU banks gained big once again, Union, Canara and Indian Bank, though up the highest point. All said and done, the bulls should be reasonably happy that they have not given up too much gains from yesterday's monster rally, and the fact that mid-cap index is once again outperforming.
Okay, we'll leave it at that then. The currency market now, the rupee is trading weak against the dollar. So the Indian unit has been hovering around 73.60 per dollar at this point in time. Yes, 73.64 to be exact. Now from currency to commodity markets, then crude oil prices are falling, weighed down by signs of rising global supply. So Brent crude is at this point in time hovering around the $76.8 per barrel mark. NYMEX at 76.63. Clearly down by about 0.6%. Back home, petrol prices have been reduced for the 13th day in a row, and it is now down to 85 rupees and 4 paise per litre in Mumbai. Diesel prices have also been reduced at this point. So diesel in Mumbai at 77.32, in Chennai at 78 even now. As crude oil prices remain weak on supply surge concerns, FOTI Bureau of International Energy Agency expects prices to remain subdued in 2019 as well. In an exclusive conversation with CNBC Sri Jagaraja, Bureau warned that if crude oil prices are allowed to surge beyond a limit, it will weaken demand.
Let's start with the demand picture, especially for 2019. Is it looking like it's going to falter, especially given the external conditions and especially considering the trade conflict?
Now, in the last 2-3 years, we have seen a very strong oil demand growth, about 1.4 million barrels per day, for example, last year. And this year and 2019, we may see some downward pressure on the oil demand growth for two reasons. One is the economic growth momentum is slowing down because of the trade conflicts you mentioned, and some of the emerging countries have major currency crisis. This is one driver of the downward pressure on the oil demand growth. And the second one is the rather high oil prices. It also creates problem for the consumers to afford buying gasoline, diesel or LPG. As a result of these two factors, we may well see 2019 oil demand growth is weaker than 2018 or 17, but still, for the compared to historical averages, still very strong, over 1 million barrels per day in any case.
What are the demand signals telling you then, specifically out of China and India, especially considering that India is where a lot of incremental demand is coming from?
Exactly. India is moving, in fact, not only for oil, in energy in general. India is moving to the center stage of global energy affairs, including oil. But today, I mean, when you look at India, talking about the high oil prices, 2 weeks ago, when the prices were about $80, since the rupee lost a value vis-a-vis US dollar, measured in the rupee terms, oil prices for the Indian consumers 2 weeks ago was the same when the oil prices were $147 a few years ago. So therefore, it would definitely put a downward pressure on the appetite for oil demand in India and other emerging countries. Therefore, my message is also to the producing countries the Gulf countries and the others, if they don't see demand to go down significantly, higher prices is an issue that they need to keep an eye on. I believe higher oil prices is not for the consumers today, but not good for the producers tomorrow.
All right, moving on back home, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs raised concerns about corporate governance in the wake of the IL&FS crisis. In a detailed report submitted to the Finance Ministry, the MCA's key pitch is to curb the immunity that has been given to independent directors under the Companies Act. Timsy Chapuria, who has been tracking this, is here with the details. Timsy, what are the other findings of the MCA's report and when can we expect a crackdown?
Well, after the IL&FS crisis emerged, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs did an internal analysis and they have found that the corporate governance in India is facing serious concerns. They have submitted a detailed report to Prime Minister's office and to the Finance Minister and Corporate Affairs Minister Arun Jaitley, trying to raise alarm bells in this area as well. MCA has pitched for curbing immunity given to independent directors under the Companies Act, which is specifically under Section 149(12) of the Companies Act. And the MCA report has found that the current standards of corporate governance in India are at a very frightening stage. MCA, to be precise, has said that there's an urgent need to relook at the role of regulators. They've also questioned whether a self-regulation by board is enough or not, which is why they feel that not just IL&FS but many more companies are facing a lot of corporate governance issues, and this is high time that government should react towards it. They've also said that the FSLRC architecture has also failed to meet its objectives, and thus there are problems in the current regulatory architecture which need to be addressed at the earliest to avoid any such crisis to happen further. So let's see how soon government takes action in this area, especially when it comes to corporate governance across India. Back to you.
Okay, fair enough, Timsy. Thanks for joining in with that. Now, earlier today, Finance Ministry's Arun Jaitley spoke at the US-India Strategic Partnership Forum. He criticized the RBI for looking the other way when banks were lending indiscriminately from 2008 to 2014. FM also defended demonetization and went on to say that the government is close to doubling the tax base at this point.
You see, 2008 to 2014, after the global economic crisis, to keep the economy artificially going, banks were told open your doors and lend indiscriminately. The central bank looked the other way. There was indiscriminate lending. Government was pushing. It was almost the phones used to go and they used to lend. And there were years during this period where the normal bank credit growth should be about 14% annually, seeing India's growth rate. So you had a 31% credit growth in a year. And the IBC and demonetization, I think, also had a moral quotient about them. And India needed that moral quotient. And the moral quotient in demonetization was that those who did not believe in paying taxes and operated outside the taxation structure had no option but to deposit their monies in the banks. That's the only way they could save those monies. So those who didn't understand the concept of demonetization said, oh, people have deposited, so demonetization has flopped. My own estimation is that from 2014 to 19, we'll be almost very close to doubling our tax base, which in a 5-year period to do it is quite difficult. That's a result of all these changes, the formalization of the economy, the new indirect tax structure, the improvement in the direct tax structure. And this is while bringing the rates down, not increasing the rates.
Now, after jumping 30 spots last year to break into the top 100, India's ranking in the World Bank's Ease of Doing Business Index could improve even further. The rankings will be released tomorrow, and Commerce Minister Suresh Prabhu has hinted that good news could be in store. Ritu Parnabhuyan is here with the details. Ritu, what can we expect tomorrow?
while Commerce Minister Suresh Prabhu said that India is expected to improve its ranking in the ease of doing business index, sources have told me that there will be a significant improvement in this ranking, and that is because of three factors. Firstly, you have trading across borders. Secondly, a construction permit, and thirdly, starting a business. So these three parameters within this index have seen significant improvement, and that will be reflected in this year's ease of doing business index. However, GST and IBC, the two major reforms which this government carried out, the impact of these two major reforms will not be seen to the extent to what the government would have wanted to in this year's index. The government sources told us that perhaps next year we will see a good impact of IBC and GST in the ease of doing business index. So how much will this ranking be? Well, sources have told us that it will be definitely more than a rank of 90, but they did not give us the exact figure. That exact figure will be known tomorrow at 6:30, where there will be a government press conference here in Delhi. Let's listen to what Suresh Prabhu had to say regarding this improvement in ranking in the ease of doing business index.
Tomorrow, I don't want to announce it today, but tomorrow you'll hear a good news, a better news, I would say, not good news, about India's improving parameters on ease of doing business.
Well, from Delhi to the big story in Mumbai, the strike by Ola and Uber drivers demanding higher fares entered its 9th day in Mumbai, and while many commuters continue to have a harrowing time over non-availability of cabs, and that includes me, Meru Cab seems to be making hay. We learned from sources that over the past 1 week, about 12,000 drivers have enrolled with the ride-hailing company in Mumbai itself. Priya Sheth gets us this story. Priya, why are these drivers opting for Meru when Ola and Uber have issues with respect to commission?
Well, Meru Cab seems to be back in business only a week after Ola and Uber drivers decided to go on strike. Now, we understand that about 12,000 drivers have enrolled on the Meru Cabs platform over the last week. In fact, Meru Cabs, which had only 2,000 cars in Mumbai, now have about 14,000 cars plying in the city. Now, essentially, over the last couple of days, we've been speaking to several drivers across the city, both on Ola as well as on Uber platforms, and the main grievance has been both on the commission structure as well as the fare per kilometer. Now, we understand that Meru is charging a commission of about 12% versus a 20% that both Ola as well as Uber are charging on an average. As far as the per kilometer rates are concerned, while drivers claim that Ola and Uber only pay about 6 rupees per kilometer, Meru on the other hand claims a charge of about 12 to 22 rupees per kilometers, and therefore several of the drivers feel that it is more lucrative to drive a Meru cab in this backdrop. In fact, we did reach out to Meru Cabs, and the company has confirmed that they are enrolling over 1,000 drivers on a daily basis over the last 1 week.
Okay, one company's loss is another one's gain, but let's move on. India has a chance to lead the fourth industrial revolution. That's the word coming in from the chairman and managing director of Reliance Industries, Mukesh Ambani. Speaking at the 24th MobiCom conference, Mukesh Ambani also said that India's digital transformation was unmatched and unprecedented. Speaking at the same event, founder of Infosys, N. Narayanamurthy, talked about the recent debate on data localization and suggested that there should be flexibility in norms on this issue.
That if there is one place in the world where the transformative power of digitization is breaking new ground every day, it is India. In the next 2 decades, I can confidently say that India shall be leading the world and shall contribute to the next wave of equitable global economic growth. India has a chance of not just participating in the fourth industrial revolution, but also leading it.
In certain areas, it may be mandated by government, but in certain other areas, these things will have to be decided on the basis of economy of scale. If there is a multinational which has a very small business in India, for them to install all the paraphernalia required for localization may not be possible. So therefore, these are issues that we should be flexible about at this point of time, because our top priority is to create more and more jobs, better and more jobs with better and better income.
Speaking of jobs and tech, the US should be more worried about the ramifications of its protectionist programs and measures, as Indian talent is critical for its innovation. That's the word coming in from NASSCOM President Debjani Ghosh. Her comments came after the US said that it is planning to revise the definition of employment under the H-1B visas by January, a move which will impact the Indian IT companies in the US. In a conversation with me, Debjani Ghosh dismissed any reason to worry and said that Indian companies' H-1B visa intake has fallen in the last 2 years by almost 40%. Listen in.
If you look at the trend for the Indian companies, H-1B intake has gone down by nearly 40% over the last 2 years.
Really?
Yeah. And currently we are at less than 13% of the total 65,000 visas given. The rest of the visas, the bulk of it, the 87% odd, 86% odd, is going to international companies and primarily US companies. If you look at who the highest takers of H-1B are, these are all the top tech companies in US who are also the biggest spenders of R&D in US. What does this tell you? This tells you that Indian talent is critical for innovation in US.
But the deal pipeline is looking better, right?
Which one?
Deal pipeline as a whole.
The deal pipeline is looking
better
very
right
good.
now.
And that's, see, what worries me is the opportunity, the digital transformation opportunity is huge.
Okay.
I mean, just if you look at the global opportunity in the next few years, it's in the range of 370 billion, right? If you look at just India, from now till 2021, which is what, 2 years from now, right? 3 years. The digital transformation opportunity is 154 billion. That's huge, right? Now, what this requires is tremendous amount of innovation. It requires co-creation. It requires new business models.
All right. On that note, let's move on to election exchange then. 2 police personnel and a Doordarshan camera have been killed in Naxal attack in poll-bound Chhattisgarh's Dantewada district. According to the police, the Doordarshan team was in the Naxalite region to cover development works and were caught in the crossfire between the Naxalites and the security forces. Our reporter Archana Shukla has been tracking this story and she's joining in from ground zero. Archana, what are you picking up from your sources right now? Okay, I think we've lost the line from Archana, but Archana has been covering election exchange. Of course, this is something that has affected the poll-bound city and has affected the entire region of Chhattisgarh at this point in time. We will be tracking this very closely, and for now, the data that we have is that 3 have been killed in the Naxal attack. And according to the police, the Doordarshan team was actually covering this area for development works. We will have to come back to the story. We will first now move on to earnings corner. Tech Mahindra has come out with the second quarter numbers and management is addressing the media. Let's cut across live.
Currency about 5.2%. But if I factor in the HLS revenue, the overall business has more or less remained flattish. Or even a marginal decline. Our EBITDA of, you saw the journey over the last 6 quarters. You've seen that our margin is constantly improving. In the last 6 quarters, it has improved by 6.8%. Happy to report that our margin is at, EBITDA is at 18.8%. It's the highest in the last 3 years. And I want to thank Ravi and his team for leading the efforts on operating margin. And Ravi has assured me that there are still more operating levers. And his journey is not finished and he'll continue to grow. So if you look at the margin improvement program, it had fairly, large number of initiatives that were taken. Number 1 was on increasing the digital footprint internally and externally. Focus on platforms and high-yield business. Number 3 was leveraging our own IPR in automation and platforms. Number 4 was on utilization improvement, the focus on reskilling of employees and new age delivery models. So I think we are on a good journey. overall, I feel very, very happy, not only with our digital footprint, but also with our operating margins. I know on the growth side, we have still more work to do. I mean, it is no excuse that HLS had when you're running a large group, I don't think it is, I need to take into account some of my business which is lumpy. How do I spread it, and how do I make sure that we are able to show growth on quarter, though this business has come in line with our expectations in terms of growth, but I think we need to work a little smartly, we need to work a little differently, and I'm quite confident that because of the large deals that we have won in the last quarter, I mean, we have won new deals worth about 550 million this quarter. This would be our best quarter in terms of winning deals. Communication, as a matter of fact, led the show. They won the $300 million deals, and it clearly gives me a confidence that communication business is bouncing back. I think I could go through all the deals that we have won, but more important is that we have had 3 large deals in the communication group, 2 large deals in the enterprise business, and overall feel very, very happy with the way we are running and the way the company is geared up to face the future. Not only have we focused on business, we won number of awards on sustainability. The latest one has been Dow Jones Sustainability Award, 4th year in succession. So your company is responsible, your company is conscious of the carbon footprint, and the company is constantly winning awards and being recognized for the initiatives it has taken in sustainability. Overall, the company continues to invest in 5G Center of Excellence. We recently signed a lab with a Japanese large conglomerate called Rakuten, and with Rakuten we are looking at 5G migrations, and we are looking at deploying 5G technology in Japan market. Overall, the focus on innovation, the focus on technology, the focus on platform play. I'm sure Ravi may want to add a little bit on technology and innovation and platform play, but as I said, I know we can do better, but I feel good. So Ravi, if you want to...
Quick input from you, yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, that was the management of Tech Mahindra addressing its second quarter earnings.